So with that, these ladies are calling in now, and we already have Marnie Schneider on the line. And Marnie, how are you doing? Your mom should be calling shortly.
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Here's your mom
Good.
now.
Glad to have you on the show.
And this is Susan T.
Thank you.
Spencer.
How you doing?
How are these wonderful ladies with us tonight?
Oh, we are just fine. We're working out with Pat Shermer.
Oh, yo, wow. So let's get right to the Philly stuff, because that's the stuff that you guys have probably the biggest insight as to what's going on. You know, a lot of people have been talking everything from Coughlin to Shermer to even Peterson. What do you, from all the things that you've heard inside that organization, the closed doors, the secret little, TPs and everything else like that, what is the newest vibe as to who's going to be the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles? You could tell us, nobody's listening.
No, well, the truth of the matter
I
is
hope lots of people
that,
are listening.
that it's not about the coach; it's about the money.
Yeah, okay.
And it with managers and owners of companies, and they've just taken a big hit with Chip Kelly with all the crap they had to end up getting, and all the contracts that they don't want. Any business person is going to say, "What can I do at least to get me tied over so I can find out the players we actually have, what their talent really is, and whether it's worth keeping them." And that's why I would keep Pat Shermer. He's been around the Eagles 12 years and played all kinds of different positions. You know, he coached all kinds, and the quarterbacks love him. And he was the coach at the Rams that coached Sam Bradford and made him what he is. He was great in the years that he was there with them. And
So-
same thing with McNabb.
Yeah.
You know, he trained him too. So, you know, you've got a if you're going to keep Bradford, you better keep him.
No, that's very insightful. It really
Great
is.
case.
Now, I can understand what a lot of these coaches are reluctant to take this job at, because from what it looks like, Chip Kelly kind of scorched the earth as far as salary cap goes for the next maybe 3 years in Philadelphia. It's going to be really hard for them to field a strongly talented team with what they currently have in place as far as player personnel. Does that create some concerns for coaches coming in?
Well, coaches coming in with Chip Kelly's cast-offs, which they really don't like, and they don't like his methodology of coaching, they're not going to step in and go, "Oh, I got all these guys." You know, they're either trained, they're young, or they're not young, or they're not disciplined, and you know they love the no huddle, and that's not my offensive scheme. So I think it's really hard to follow in his footsteps because no one believed that scheme would work, and it doesn't work. And so, therefore, why would you want to step into a hornet's nest with a bunch of kids that were selected that they don't even know? And you know, you have to be careful. And Pat Shermer was the only coach on that team that seemed to be respected by the players. They played for him. They didn't play for Chip.
Yeah.
They hated him. They really hated him.
Yeah, this seems like, I mean, you bringing this up, it seems like almost the exact situation that happened in New York, right? For almost the same reasons. It seemed like Eli Manning really lobbied for McAdoo to keep that job there. And in the end, that's who they eventually went with. What do you think of that hiring?
Well, I think that if it's your quarterback and that's your bread and butter, you better go with what the quarterback thinks as long as they can manage it and do it. Because if you get a quarterback and he doesn't mesh with his head coach, it'll be lousy. It'll be a lousy season.
What do you think about the new hiring in Cleveland? Is this finally going to be the hire that brings that all together? And another thing, how rare is it to see 3 black NFL head coaches inside of one division?
Well, it happens. You know, it happens sometimes, and it's rare. It's very rare. But there is a protocol in the NFL that they need a certain amount of black coaches, and they want them. You know, they want them to be in the team spread across every team that they have. And Eagles didn't have any black coaches, did they?
Ray Rhodes.
No. Oh, yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Now I think about it.
Good one.
I mean, that was a long time ago, but
No,
yeah.
but I'm talking about under Chip Kelly.
Not that I could think
You
of.
would- Yeah, I would believe you wouldn't be able to find one.
Except for maybe
Well,
Deuce.
what about Deuce Staley?
Deuce Staley. Running back coach.
Well, he had been a former player. That's different.
Yeah.
Different. A lot of these former players come back to the teams and they coach them because they have respect for them, and that's different. But this is a guy who is a one for all and all for one, and that's exactly what Chip Kelly is. And he's not likable. He's not a likable person. He doesn't, the best way to analyze Pat Shurmur is look at him on the sidelines. He's very engaged with his players. He's very engaged in telling them and showing them stuff. And I never saw that with Chip Kelly, not once.
One thing I wanted to jump in and just say here is, I mean, it's a testament to obviously your wide knowledge of the game and what's happening behind the scenes. But Chip Kelly's nowhere to be found. I mean, hirings are taking place. His name isn't really thrown around anywhere. We're not seeing anything happening. And even in San Francisco, one of the places he was kind of linked to, it seems like they're looking another place. So, I mean, that was a great call. He's not. It doesn't seem to be getting the calls. Do you think he even picks up an NFL job somewhere else this year?
No, I don't. I don't think they'll ever bring him back. Nope. Because they saw the debacle that happened, where they had a great core of players that the first year that he had the power, he got rid of all of them. That's about the dumbest thing you can ever do. And then he pissed everybody else off because they happen to be all black players. And you've got much bigger black, locker room than you do anywhere else. And he just seemed to be very anti-black. And the players knew it, and they felt it, and they didn't play for him.
Now, I can understand, and this is what I've been hearing around the locker room, is that he wasn't necessarily quote-unquote racist or anti-African-American. He was very much anti the African-American culture per se. Like, kind of like things like the guys wearing the $1 million earrings. Yeah, the Deshaun Jackson, the bling bling, the hip hop culture going on in the locker rooms instead of being down the business and being almost like a corporate entity. Now, I on one part of me understands a little bit of that because it is a work environment, and then the other part of me is like, man, you got to realize who's working there. What do you? I mean, are you convinced that Chip Kelly is ultimately racist, or do you think this is a case of just maybe two different cultures coming together?
I don't think he was racist. I think he wasn't happy with the players that he had because what he never understood is college kids are a dime a dozen. College football players, they can go in, they can go out. You got 100 and some kids, so you lose a few, you get a few, and you can intimidate the college kids because they want to stay in college and they want to keep their scholarship. But when they get to the pros are awfully arrogant. And you got to understand that. They're not kids anymore. They understand where their money is. They understand how much they're getting. They understand their value and their depth chart. Every one of those players will tell you where they are on the depth chart across every team in the NFL. It's pretty amazing when you try to sign them. They know exactly where their position is. And therefore, they have some leverage. So when they came in, the Jacksons and all the other players that they got rid of, they knew where their standing was and that they could get a great job somewhere else. And so they were a little arrogant, and he's very arrogant. And he's not used to that. He's used to college kids saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir. Anything you want, sir. I'll do anything you want. That's just not what professional football is. And college coaches like that get burned up quickly because they're disappointed that they can't control them. And they can't. They can't. They just won't. And I think Dick Vermeil had, a first go-round, and when he came back to the Eagles, he knew that it was a different ball game. The professionals were a different ball game. But what Vermeil did for them was that he not only embraced them as individuals, but he embraced their whole family, their wives, their kids, their parents. And that's why they had such a dedication to him. And you got Chip Kelly, who's completely on an island all by himself.
You mentioned Dick Vermeil a few moments ago, and I would be not doing my job right if I didn't ask you, though you weren't working with Dick Vermeil when he was with the Rams. Today we've had some pretty startling news as Lawrence Phillips was found dead in his cell. He was incarcerated late last night. Now, Dick Vermeil knew Lawrence Phillips and even gave him a chance, drafting him number 6 overall. At one point, Lawrence Phillips looked like he could be a phenomenal running back for the St. Louis Rams. However, a tearful Dick Vermeil ended up basically cutting him, did cut him from the St. Louis Rams. Now, I guess what I'm trying to ask here is this kind of we got done talking to Leon Searcy last night, and there are some players who just have a hard time transitioning from college to the pros. And this battle, per se, of what a college athlete to a pro athlete is, has been going on for a very long period of time. People have always had, on either a professional or a skill level, having a difficult time transitioning to the NFL. Would you say that Pat Shurmur, as a Philadelphia Eagles coach, is going to be ready to handle those kinds of challenges with players?
Well, he's been around these players, a lot of them, for 12 years in different positions. So he's got an opportunity, a great opportunity to observe all of these kids or all these players that are there now. And that gives you a real edge. If you know each player by their personality, by their lack of confidence, by their weakness in the things that they do, what an edge you get. A fresh coach comes in and they don't know anybody. And therefore they can't step up for year 1 or year 2. And that's why I say you keep a decent coach and you don't get rid of him until he proves he can't bring you to a playoff. And I think Pat Shurmur can do that. He's a very, very well-rounded guy. Michigan State guy, well-rounded. He was a coach, an assistant coach, and did get to the big dance. I don't think they won the Super Bowl, but I think he got him there. He was one of the coaches there. And I just think he's all of the things I've read about him are that he's a really good guy, and the players really like him. And that's a good start because you never know when you interview coaches whether they're player-friendly or not. I think that Chip Kelly really put a snow job on him because if they had seen the interaction with players and administrators, they would have known right away, this guy's bad. He's just arrogant. And he left on an arrogant note, too. Flew away, and that was it. Personality matters. And even though they're professional players because they want to play with the best. They want the coaches to be the best. They want them to be smart. They want them to come up with great game plans. They want them to keep them practicing in the things that they aren't sure they know everything about. And there aren't that many coaches out there that are like that can relate to the players, that can understand the game, that can be innovative, that can be they can listen to players and listen to what they want and keep that and put that in their playbook. That's what makes the winners. All you need in the locker room is 4 or 5 guys that are very influential as players to buy in. And once they buy in, everybody else buys in. And that's really the art of it. The art of it is listening to your players, listening to what they're going to tell you, listening to their personal problems, listening to the things that worry them, listening to the injuries that they have that they want to have taken care of. And a lot of coaches don't. And I don't think Chip Kelly ever went into a player's room and talked to them, ever. And you can't be successful that way. You got to give them your time. You have to. So even though they seem to be professionals and make a lot of money, they're still children in a way. They haven't matured fully. And they're still insecure. And they're still worried about losing their jobs. And they still want to make the incentives on their contract. And so that's what it's like a complicated business where there's a lot of moving parts. And if you want to be a leader of the team and have great assistant coaches that can do some of it for you, then you get to be successful. But if you don't, if you stay away from it, you don't want to get into their heads,